In my ideal future of learning, learning adapts to each child. Every child has exactly what he or she needs at the right time to be successful. This vibrant future of learning is possible, I think, but it's not the norm today. Think back to your own K-12 experience. Can you remember any time when you had a say in your learning? You got to choose what you wanted to learn when you wanted and were ready to learn it? I can remember one time when I was in 7th grade, when my high school English teacher asked me what aspects of grammar I wasn't so clear about. And I said I wanted to learn more about commas. People who know me know I still love the grammar. I was ready, and I don't know how many other kids she talked to, but we spent the next few weeks drilling on commas, and I remember how commas work. But I'm sure that was really excruciating for a lot of people. It shouldn't have to be that we're all sitting there learning the same thing on the same day because we're a certain age. We should have what we need when we need it. And I think this is possible because education is going through a period of disintermediation, or taking out the middleman. We've seen this happen in other sectors. In education, we're increasingly seeing teaching and learning become unbundled from traditional institutions, so that we're relating to them in new and different ways. And as the rising rates of homeschooling, unschooling, free schooling, and other approaches to self-organized learning attest, for some learners and their families, those relationships are ending entirely. So let's think about other sectors for a moment. In media, we've seen our choices proliferate. It's no longer, the three network channels we grew up with. There's the proliferation of cable. Now we're able to be co-producers of media content if we want to be, and we have hyper-focused offerings available on demand through multiple formats. Same kind of thing has happened in publishing. We still buy paper books if we want to do so, but we might not have that neighborhood local bookstore at which to purchase them. We might be buying them online, we might be buying them at some other kind of store, and of course we might be choosing to read them in digital format rather than in print. If that neighborhood bookstore does remain, it's because it's managed to create a really specific customer experience, offer a particular value proposition that is appealing to a certain clientele. So when we see disintermediation coming in education, we're really looking at the expansion of the learning ecosystem. So we still have brick and mortar schools in the public, private, and parochial systems, but we have a lot of other options already now too. We've got some really exciting things happening with flipped or blended learning inside classrooms that might look traditional from the outside, but we also have MOOCs. We have the ability to customize a particular lesson path to pursue a particular learning objective. And we also have an increasing array of intentionally cultivated community-based or informal learning experiences like the Surge Network here in Columbus. So this proliferation of learning opportunities is suggesting that in 10 years, learners and their families could be creating customized learning playlists that reflect their particular needs, interests, and goals. That the learning ecosystem as a whole will enable many right combinations of learning resources and supports and experiences so that every learner has exactly what he or she needs at the right time. I hope that we are able to deliver on this promise of radically personalized learning for all young people, that every child can experience learning driven by his or her needs and interests. I'm really excited about this possibility because I think it offers the chance to create vibrant local learning ecosystems that are adapting to local conditions and also helping all young people thrive. But I'm also afraid. We don't operate education in an equitable way today. Our student funding formula here in Ohio was ruled unconstitutional years ago, and we still haven't gotten it right. And as we see the learning ecosystem expand, I'm afraid that we'll let the learning landscape fracture. That we'll end up in a situation in which only those learners whose families have the time, money, and other resources to customize or supplement their learning journeys will have access to just that right combination of learning experiences that meets their needs. I don't want to live in that fractured landscape scenario. I'm also afraid at a personal level. This is my daughter, Chloe. She's 3 years old. She gravitates toward anything with an engine: buses, construction vehicles, trains, you name it, she loves it. She also loves to dress as Wonder Woman year-round and gravitates toward all things pink and purple. She's a typical kid, and she's entirely herself. Chloe has been in daycare since she was 11 weeks old because I work full-time, and that's one version of what it takes to work full-time in this society. But even so, I'm afraid to send her to school because I'm afraid that school, as we typically do school today, will stifle her creativity and kill her love of learning. Because we keep operating school as a norm according to an industrial era design principle, an industrial era system whose time has passed. We no longer live in that industrial economy for which our current education system was designed. We're moving toward a participatory economy in which increasingly full-time employment, as we are used to thinking about it, is on the decline. And many of today's kindergartners can be expected to be creating their own jobs. Yet we keep operating schools, for the most part, according to a one-size-fits-all model. We keep trying to help kids adapt to one version of school. But kids are individuals, not widgets. Every child deserves radically personalized learning that meets his or her needs and follows his or her interests. So as I look ahead at my vision for the future of learning, I think it's possible to pursue this radically transformed learning landscape. But it's going to take deep transformation. We have to get way beyond the relatively small conversations about education reform that are the norm today. We have to bring about some profound cultural and structural changes in the core of what happens with teaching and learning. And at the same time, we need to rethink fundamentally the supporting systemic structures that surround learning, things like education policy, accountability, and funding. If we're able to do that, if we're able to transform the learning landscape, I think we can create learning that truly puts each child at the center. In my vision for the future of learning, learning is flowing around each child. It's adapting to each child, so that individuals and not institutions are driving the flow of learning. And every child has access to just the right experiences at the right time. In this vision for the future, school takes many forms. So for some kids, the right answer might be to go to a brick-and-mortar school that looks, at least from the outside, a lot like many schools do today. Other kids might have a completely different right answer. They might be assembling custom mosaics of learning experiences, really crafting individualized learning journeys that are drawing upon learning experiences from many learning providers. Those could include our museums, our libraries, our hospitals, other kinds of workplaces, our science centers, places like the Idea Foundry, community organizations, neighborhood elders could contribute. Any number of organizations and people could be part of an individual young person's learning journey, if that's right at that time. So we're still going to need safe places for a lot of kids to go. But those places don't have to be today's schools. And they don't have to try to be delivering all learning. They can be more like learning hubs or portals out into the broader community's resources, and indeed to many resources beyond our community's boundaries. And the adults who are there supporting learners are acting as guides and facilitators, not gatekeepers or production line supervisors. They're supporting each child in figuring out what excites and motivates him or her, and then in pursuing those interests in really meaningful, authentic, and relevant ways while continuing to discover new interests. If we could really put learners at the center of the learning ecosystem, we'd have the potential to flip open the region's resources, really to remake the whole metro area as a learning landscape. If we did that, we might be able to get past zip code-based education, in which the outcomes of education are all too predetermined for too many young people, and really bring the vitality of the region's resources to bear for all young people. And that would benefit not just those individual learners, but also our region. Think about the potential for our economic development and vitality if we were truly supporting all young people in achieving their fullest potential. I think we can do this, but we're going to need a paradigm shift. We're going to need to get out of the industrial era mindset that's driving much of education today, that's causing us to ask, how can we scale and replicate things that work well for some learners in some settings? And instead, we're going to need to adopt an ecological perspective, where we have design principles guiding learning, but we're really enabling learning to adapt with each learner and enabling the learning ecosystem as a whole to adapt and flow and continue to evolve, to be resilient, not just for the next decade, but for years beyond that. I want this future of learning for Chloe. I want to trust that when I send her to school, whatever that looks like, it's going to be supporting her as a whole person, and it's going to be encouraging her love of learning, not stifling it. So that could mean pretty simple things in relative terms. So I don't know how many of you have been in this situation that I'll be facing in a couple of years, where we're going to have to decide whether to hold Chloe back since she has an October birthday, let her be in preschool for 3 years, or petition a school district to let her start when she's still 4. And why is that the choice we're facing? Why couldn't kids start kindergarten when they turn 5 on a rolling basis, the way they start preschool based on when they're born? That could mean much more profound things too. Getting Chloe the right experiences at the right time could mean having completely new structures that enable her to access learning experiences across our local landscape and far beyond, and not having to depend on me, because I hope I'm still going to be working full-time, to be her primary learning Sherpa. I want this future of learning for all young people. Every child deserves radically personalized learning that supports him and her in pursuing their interests, in really thriving as a whole person. As I look ahead at this vision, my biggest question is whether we have the will to pull it off. Will we have the courage to really foster new kinds of learning landscapes where learning is flowing around each child, where we're really personalizing learning to each young person and releasing kids from the confines of institutional boundaries? Or will we let the learning landscape fracture? I profoundly hope that we will create a vibrant learning ecosystem for all young people. And if you agree with me that we can, what can you do today, even a small step, that might begin to shift the mindset, shift that paradigm from the industrial era assumptions that are driving education today toward a vibrant learning landscape that can help every young person flourish?